Like go yard.
What's up, y'all?
Hey. I know I gotta keep my shorty on go.
Yeah. All right. It's for you, Christian.
We had a special request today from Sir Christian.
Welcome, you all. Thank you for joining us.
I ain't no player, I just got a lot of things. But let me tell you,
we got some people watching. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Good vibes all around.
You know I like when you right at the top, baby.
Jerica's about to chime in a second. We'll give it a couple more seconds.
Don't need promo. I pull up to the high rise, I'm in the 4-4.
Talk to us. Join the conversation.
I'm gonna try that romantic.
You see my diamonds even when I'm in the dark. And since you got it, it make you go and do anything you want. Try to make that ass clap, she don't need no applause. High fashion, like go yard, G-Wagon, or the
just gonna let that go down to the background. We still gonna have it so we can have the same vibe. How you guys doing?
Good.
Excellent.
So people can
amazing. Everybody, welcome to the second episode of Yup Live. We are the Young Urban Professionals.
Yup. I like that.
Just off the Richter scale. Today is an interesting day. A lot of amazing topics, a lot of things going on, and some interesting things happening on the Senate floor, Congress floor. So let's jump into it. How's everybody doing, though?
Really
good. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. I know it's the middle of the week, but we're feeling good. We're feeling excellent. I'm ready to jump into some of these things. I've been watching the news.
Can we do some quick introductions real quick so people know?
You know what? We have to do introductions because Mr. Christian is live with us this time. So, Mr. Christian Green, go ahead and introduce yourself.
We did that last week.
We didn't have the opportunity last week.
Okay. And we got to make sure that everyone knows to follow us. You see our handles on there.
Yes.
At Christian423. I'm out here in Lancaster, Palmdale area, the AV, also part of LA County. I'm a youth pastor. I'm a political activist. I am an author, a speaker. I mean, I just love people and making sure that we help and empower people. And so that's my ultimate goal. And I'm so excited to be a part of this project and about our podcast because we're about to bring it live, real from a young urban perspective. And so I hope that you guys all share this, tell everyone, tweet it, whatever you do. Let's try to get the people in the building tonight and make sure that people know that we're actually trying to make some change virtually. So thank you for having us support.
That was excellent. I couldn't have said so better myself. Miss Jasmine, do you want to do another introduction for yourself? Might as well. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So I am Jasmine LaVerne. I am a media specialist, PR publicist for brands, working at the intersection of social justice, beauty, and Hollywood. I'm excited to be here. Make sure you send us comments and keep the conversation going. We want this to be a really engaged show. If you're an urban professional, we're an urban professional. We can't do this alone. We need a group of us to have opinions.
Absolutely. And then my name is Sharíck LaMay. I am also a media specialist as well as a producer, director, host, and I'm just happy to be here and be able to share my perspective because I don't believe it's something that we get to hear often from the young urban professionals. So as I was mentioning, we are here for policy change and reform change, and we're also here to educate as well as to learn about what's going on in our crazy society, especially with all that's happening, all of the tensions, everything that's boiling up. One of the topics that we said we really wanted to talk about today, because of course it's a hot button topic, is the state of the police, the state of Black people in general, in terms of us being killed by the powers and the authorities that may be. So why don't you go ahead and take it away for us, Jasmine, with our very first hot button topic.
Okay, so first we are going to be talking about Breonna Taylor's murderer, Detective Brett Hangen, being fired yesterday. So we still haven't had any arrests happen, but I guess it's a slow process. The public sentiment, we are able to, with all the momentum going and all of the police reform and everything. Minnesota, where's she from? Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, doing what they have to do to kind of push her story forward and get her justice. So I was glad to see that he got fired. I don't think it's enough. I think that all the other people who decided they wanted to go into her house, they also need to be held accountable.
Absolutely.
So I think this is just the first step in justice. But I mean, if we're talking about the 3 months after it happened, we can talk about how long it took Aubrey to get justice as well. So I think it's just an ongoing conversation that we're going to be having in the next couple of months and throughout the election season.
Right, definitely. Christian, what do you think about this, him being fired?
I think that what my colleague is saying is that it definitely is a step, but it's not the best step or the final step that should be happening. I think police need to be held accountable on a whole nother level. I mean, you've seen this. This is the whole, the world literally is up in arms about this right now, right?
Yeah.
So in Sweden, out here to New York City, the youth and this generation is not having it. And so I think that we need to make sure that these police are held accountable. I know we're going to talk about it later, but I remember hearing somebody earlier, I think on the GOP side, saying something about taking away pensions and stuff from the families and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you guys police are taking lives every day, Black and brown lives. And even if it's not a murder, it can be even in a physical aspect, locking them up in the jail cell mentally, spiritually. And so it's a whole of things. But I will say that I'm actually glad that he is gone. It sucks that it took this long, but this is what applying pressure is able to do. So those that are out there protesting, do it and do it big.
Absolutely. I would say I agree with you guys. I think, sometimes it's not too little too late. It's definitely making a statement, but I feel as though it's because we applied the pressure. It wasn't something that they thought to do because they did the research on their own and they understood that the whole setup was just all bad altogether. Just to kind of segue, and then we'll come back to the police, we have to acknowledge the fact that we got news that the killers of Ahmaud Arbery were actually indicted today on murder. And their names are Travis McMichael, a father and son duo, William Roddy Bryan, all indicted on 9 counts in the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery. I just can't believe that this is news months and months and months after the fact.
And you know what? I'll say it's interesting that Christian, you mentioned that they'll be taking away the pensions of the police officers, but and I will be short on this, but money and taking away their pension, that does nothing to a community who doesn't have equity or doesn't have money in the first place. So it's kind of like, meet us where we are, but they're so jaded and they're so out of touch with what we need as a community that they can't even give us the right result, with the 9 counts. I mean, if we want to pull up the list of the 9 cases,
pull it up, pull the receipt.
We have 1 count of malice murder, 4 counts of felony, 2 counts of aggravated assault, 1 count of false imprisonment, and 1 count of criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment. Are we satisfied with that? Is that good?
No.
No. What do you think, Christian?
Say that last part again. In regards to what was that last one?
The last one was criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment.
Oh no. But there was nothing for murder, right?
It was 1 count of malice murder and 4 counts of felony murder.
Oh, okay. Now I'm not a legal expert, so I don't really know what
that's murder. But is that level 1, or how they have murder 1, murder 2?
I don't think
degree. We're gonna have to research that. I mean, it sounds like it's
a legal analysis, a legal analyst in the comments.
Drop the comments.
Drop the comments. Like I said, this is a conversation, baby. I think
for me personally, I hear these and then it doesn't give me a sense of hope. It still doesn't give me a sense of relief, because we've seen so many time and time again that they still get off. So to me, it's like, okay, you're kind of dangling the treat in front of us, but at the same time, I don't know if I would even be satisfied until there's some type of reparation or some type of something that they have to physically give to the family. You know, there's nothing that can bring the son back.
Right. And we saw what happened with George Zimmerman, right?
Exactly.
He went through a whole trial and he got off. And my thing is, the biggest thing, this isn't even a police officer. This isn't even someone, Ahmaud didn't threaten their lives.
Right.
They were two separate people. So when you decide, community policing, which we'll talk about later,
mm-hmm.
Who is giving you that authority?
Right. And why do you think that it's okay just to take
exactly? And so if they get off, it's just another slap in the face, and it's kind of another distrust of government. And I think that is something that needs to shift. But I think it's on a local level, which I don't know if I see any restitution happening in Georgia.
It is Georgia. Hot.
It is Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the things to come. And, you know, I know we're talking about police today, but in the case of Ahmaud Arbery, it just leaves a different feeling in my stomach because they weren't police. These were normal citizens from around the neighborhood. Right. You know, and then they still have the propensity to get off even still because of their affiliation with their local police department.
It's protected. It's a kind of like what I've been calling it, like a secret fraternity. They protect one another, right? So I put up an article real quick that I was reading earlier. And so under Georgia law, a felony murder charge means that a death occurred during the commission of an underlying felony and doesn't require intent to kill. Malice murder requires malice aforethought, either expressed or implied. Any murder conviction in Georgia carries a minimum sentence of life in prison, either with or without the possibility of parole. Wow. So, I mean,
and you know what? I think that they gave him that count, or they made that indictment solely on the fact that the video had them using the N-word after he was killed, and they were like, "Inner."
Yeah.
So that's where that comes from. It just makes you wonder 4 counts of that or give them 3 counts of that, because all of them had that intent. When you follow someone, what were you doing? Yeah. It wasn't just one person who had the intent or had the premeditation, the pre-existing thought.
Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with it too. A lot of times in murder trials, they try to prove, the premeditated act of what it is that the person was doing. Clearly, you had one of their counterparts following the man with his cell phone out, knowing something was happening, knowing that this interaction was going to happen between Ahmaud Arbery and these other 2 gentlemen. So I fear for the outcome of this one, only because this could be like another Rodney King situation. This one could be like severe, and I'm hoping that they do the right thing at the end of the day.
This can go alongside with all of the killings that's been happening along the country, right? I know even in Lancaster, one of our older men just got shot, Michael Thomas, about 2 weeks ago, right? That Rodney King sentiment is held all over in different little sub-counties, different cities, even with the George Floyd case. We don't know, and Breonna Taylor, right? People are tired of people getting off. Specifically, and I think enough is enough. I think that this is, I think it's time for us to be able to just hold them accountable. But I think also our elected officials are sensing it, and then also, we got to figure out how to get those juries and representative of those that's being And so, someone said,
they aren't getting off. He said they are not getting off. They don't have a leg to stand on. I hope, but there's always some trickiness,
right?
That comes out of nowhere, technicalities.
And I'm interested with all the local legislation that should be happening. I'm interested with these kind of police reforms. What's the NRA doing in all of this? We didn't really talk about that, but I honestly think that they have a stake in this conversation. So I think that's an area we should be exploring as well, because those are the donors who are setting up kind of I don't know if it's necessarily what the cops get away with, because it is, you know, those are two separate entities. But we definitely know that the NRA is putting money in the GOP's pocket and in Republicans' pockets. So how is that all being held accountable?
That's something that we definitely should look into, especially because I don't know about you guys, but on my news feed, I'm seeing a lot of my African-American counterparts arming themselves and being public about the fact that we are arming ourselves. And once you get you hear it time and time again, once you get enough Black people with weapons, suddenly the laws may change.
Exactly.
So
that's what happened to Black Panthers in California. That's why they in the 60s, for sure. And then they get scared. People get scared and intimidated. I just looked up a statistic. In the United States, there's over almost close to 400 million firearms in the country, more than the population. So a lot of people are just over the firearms.
It could be an all-out war.
You know, and I mean, it's also going to be interesting because we know how, and I hate to say this on Facebook with my name and my information out here, but we know that the government be planting guns.
Yes.
We know that they're going to try to get us caught up if enough of us get weapons. That it's going to be some kind of backlash to all of that. That might be us dying, or it might be us getting locked up. They're not going to have it.
Right. So then that leads us back into the conversation about Breonna Taylor. And then we're also going to talk about police reform, particularly at the hands of the GOP. So again, we learned that Brett Hangen was fired more than 3 months after Breonna Taylor's murder. We all just said, this is a little kind of late. We're hoping things could go in the right direction, but it's looking a little bleak, especially with what happened in Washington, D.C. today as it pertains to the Senate Democrats blocking the GOP police reform bill. I've been kind of watching it and paying a little bit of attention to it, so I did take a couple of notes. I wanted to share with everybody who isn't familiar with the GOP police reform bill that was blocked today and why it was blocked and why it may have been really important for it to be blocked. So as we know, give me 1 second. So the GOP police reform bill incentivizes law enforcement agencies to ban the use of chokeholds by tying funds into whether departments have prohibited the practice except when deadly force is authorized. Their bill would ramp up data collection efforts to track when an officer's use of force results in death or serious harm. Okay. Provide federal money for additional training in alternatives to the use of force. They want more money. Include language recognizing the history of lynching in the United States. Okay. Strengthen penalties for falsifying police reports. Requiring law enforcement agencies to send the Attorney General reports to no-knock warrants. That ties into Breonna Taylor. Create a commission to study issues that affect Black men and boys. So with hearing that, what do you guys think so far?
Leave that up. There's so much to unpack.
Yeah.
Oh my God. First of all, let's create a commission to study issues that affect Black men and boys, right? What about the young ladies? What about the Black women? Talked about Breonna Taylor, right?
Right.
Come on.
Also, and what I took away from kind of the GOP bill is they want to do a lot of educating, but educating isn't, I can be educated and still make the wrong choice because I have no consequences.
It's a cultural thing. It's
a cultural thing. It's an ingrained thing in my body that I'm scared or I feel intimidated by a certain population, so I'm going to act. I can have the history like, okay, some people, or the education that, okay, some people are unconsciously biased. Some people are actively racist. That doesn't change how I move around white people.
Exactly. And that doesn't change how they move around us.
Right.
So I think it's pretty language. It's pretty language. Again, we're dangling the fruit in front of Black people and people that are unaware. As I mentioned before, there's a viral video of Kamala Harris going around where she just owned another congressman on the floor in regards to them, acting as though this GOP bill is enough. And it's not. It's missing some very key components that are imperative. I do want to mention the no-knock warrant. That should just be a given, that nobody should just be able to enter your house, without introducing themselves, unless they, I mean, I can't even say unless. There just needs to be some sort of warrant, and people need to know that you're entering their home, or something like what happened to Breonna Taylor could happen. She had no idea who was breaking into her home. She didn't know it was the
and
police.
defenseless, right?
Completely defenseless.
And it says, where are we? It says require law enforcement agencies to send the attorney general reports. So you're going to send the report after the fact.
Exactly.
Or are you saying
nothing precautionary to prevent what happened to Breonna? And this is not the first time this has happened.
Exactly. And so it needs to be more concise language. But I want to read, I didn't share these notes with you, but I want to read what a couple of weeks ago when the Democrats decided that they were going to put out their reform bill.
We'll get to that. I have that on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So pause on my thoughts.
We will get there for sure. So then another thing I wanted to also point out is that the GOP would have provided incentives for state and local police departments to make changes, including limiting the use of chokeholds. We know that's a hot button topic, and penalizing departments that do not require the use of body cameras, as we saw with the video from the young man who was in Denver. They turned their police cameras off, or they turned them around, and to not be penalized for that doesn't make sense to me. But in this doctrine, in this bill, I don't see anywhere where it's saying that these people would be held accountable or would be penalized for not having their body cameras on. Another thing that came up was qualified immunity. Unlike the Democrats' proposal, the Republican bill does not address the issue of qualified immunity. This doctrine that largely shields officers from legal liability unless a plaintiff can show their constitutional rights were clearly violated. The Trump administration has said that the amending qualified immunity is a non-starter. Whoa.
Yeah.
Christian, I'm looking at your face.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's quite ridiculous. Qualified immunity would basically mean that I have immunity, and that's what cops have been getting. This is what the main issue is police have immunity. They can go and kill someone and hide behind the badge. And this is not something that the Republicans want to take away from police officers. This is what our reform is about.
Christian, are you going to chime in on this? I have a quick.
So I definitely want to chime in regards to qualified immunity. This goes back to the protection of the police and being held accountable. This is what we're all trying to fight for, and make sure that this, people think that this is a radical ideology. Right. I mean, when we see history, and history has shown us time and time again where Black and brown people are being killed at the hands of police officers, there needs to be some type of shift. People are afraid of the word defund. People are afraid of the word abolish. People are afraid of the word even reform in a way. But like qualified immunity is just more so getting them and holding them accountable on another strategic level. It is not hard, and it's not that hard to believe. So for me, I just, it's just, again, going back to the Republicans and just people in power not understanding the people that actually potentially voted for them and that are in their district and in their area that they represent. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Jasmine, what were you thinking, or your question?
I totally agree, and I think it's twofold here, right? So the qualified immunity, I think that at the end of the day, it's bullshit, because it's like having a tenured professor, but that tenured professor has an accountability to serve that student and serve that school in the best of its ability. If you want to have qualified immunity, it needs to be a rubric, and it should be if you want to have it voted on by the community, have it voted on by people who trust that officer. Don't just give it to anybody. But with that said, we have to understand, I think, because it says something about local police departments. And the GOP, they're so localized at state level, and states can do what they want. But until there is a federal, like I'm in Georgia, I got to worry about dying, versus if I'm in California, I'm fine. It's like it needs to be a central federal law, a federal kind of blanket statement that says Black people need to be protected. Point blank, period. If I'm gonna give qualified immunity, then it needs to be something that counteracts that protects it. We have all these, and I think we said this earlier, we have all these laws, or maybe I tweeted it. We have all these laws that protect the police and protect what they do against the community, but no laws that protect Black and brown people to live.
So what question to you guys and even the audience is like, okay, I hear that argument, but what about, because this is what society is saying. So those 3-4 bad cops, what about all the good cops? Like, shouldn't they be protected as well? Like, or should they be same, that same blanket, that same institution? And this is something, I don't know how y'all feel about it, but like.
Well, that's the basis of this whole conversation is, do we believe that there is such thing as just a few bad apples in the bunch, right? Yeah. But, something that I think my dad even said it. Someone said, okay, if you see one bad apple, you see another bad apple, and then you start to see 20, 30, 40 bad apples, at what point?
You're going to throw the whole bag away.
But at what point are you going to then blame the tree? At what point are you going to then start investigating the roots of the tree? If it's so many bad apples, you got to start thinking, maybe there's something wrong with this tree. Maybe there's something wrong with the dirt, so we can't just leave it up to bad apples. Right. And just really quick, because I wanted to make sure we covered what the Democrats, as you mentioned, they brought forth a bill that they are looking to pass as of next Thursday. The Democrats are planning to bring a Democratic crafted policy proposal to vote on their chamber Thursday, which would include qualified immunity. Democrats would make it a duty of officers to intervene if they see an officer using force. I didn't want to have you guys, I think one of you had mentioned to it when we had our chat, Carol Horn, the Black police officer who was fired after she stepped in to stop her white colleague who had a suspect in a chokehold. A person for Horn told CNN that she had served 19 of the 20 years needed to receive her pension. She got fired before she was able to receive her pension. Not the officer who did the wrong, but she got fired. And I want to welcome Gerreka in. Hey, boo.
Hi. Don't fire her. Give her qualified immunity.
Thank you. That's who needs qualified immunity, right? We're so backwards. How are you going to fire? And a Black woman at that, she's a Black officer, Ms. Carol Horn. And I just think that's wrong. I think when we look at such, for example, the George Floyd situation where the other officers who were, around, we are also blaming them because they did not intervene. They did not say, hey, dude, that's a little too much. You need to back off. This woman did that, and she loses her job, and she loses everything.
Because she's not down with the union. She's not down with the blue blood.
Yeah, so this is something that's really passionate about me because I'm the one that found this story to be quite disheartening.
Yeah.
Because we hear all the time, why aren't officers stepping in? Why aren't officers stepping in? And it's like, she did step in. She was 1 year away from getting her pension, and she lost her pension. She had been in the police force for 19 years. Mm-hmm. And the CNN representative said, what does this say? What message does this say to the other officers? And she said that blue lives have to stick together, which for civilians, it's like, wow. So there could be officers that want to step in, but if they do, then they're going to lose their jobs. Which brings us to the topic, right? Good cops versus bad cops.
Right.
There are good cops out there. I've seen it, but that doesn't get as much publicity. I've literally seen videos of Black officers stepping in, trying to be the mediator. And sometimes, unfortunately, the people attack them versus the other officers. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what message is that saying as well? Here's someone trying to intervene, but you're attacking them and they're trying to help you.
I think it needs to kind of be a consistent and kind of a duty of what your role is as an officer. Yeah. Because you can have those good cops those cops who are traffic cops, and they just want you to have a bad day. We all seen those cops who just pull you over for no reason and want to give you a ticket because it's the end of the month and they got a quota. We have those cops who think, oh, I'm in a badge, I'm in a uniform, I look sexy, so I'm gonna hit on a woman, but then have her drive drunk home after the club, even though you saw me walk to my car. But it's okay, you're not gonna pull me over because you're a good cop. So I think it's a whole conversation about what your duty as a cop is. And I don't think we know what the consensus is because we are civilians, but they know as the people who are behind that blue shield.
I don't think it should matter. I don't think it should matter whether you're a traffic cop or if you are the DEA. You should have some type of moral compass in yourself that just wants to do what's right.
We have cops that don't have the moral compass.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen that, unfortunately.
Christian, I'd like to hear your thoughts, but I know for me, this has actually been a topic even within my own family because I have law enforcement family members and I have radicals in my family as well. So, you know, I hear F the police, and I'm like, yeah, you know, but then I'm also like, I do have family members that were a part of the force. However, I feel as though my family members who are a part of the force would always also say F the police, because when we say that, we're saying the institution of it, the institution from whence it was created and it was founded. It was never meant for our white counterparts. It was always meant to police us. And I think, I mean, we can have this discussion. You know, we even said, would you date a police officer? How close do you feel you would be able to be with a police officer as a Black person? Where is your comfortability? Me personally, that's a tough one because I just know where it comes from, where it stems from. It would be hard. I know the type of person I would even allow to be in my life. I know that there would be a lot of conflict, and they may end up like Carol. You know what I mean? So, Christian, what do you think?
As I sit back and think, I'm thinking more of a historical lens of just the policing institution in itself, right? And this rhetoric of law and order, and the policing in itself, because my family did not, I was born in a jail, right? So like I was born in actual prison. So we look at mass incarceration, we look at who's been incarcerated, those that have been overly policed, the unlawful search and seizures. It's usually Black and brown people, right? And so we have to look at the institution. This is me as a sociologist. Is like, if we look at the institution of policing, something is off. And we can talk about training all day. I know on a couple of the other sides, they talked about training and stuff like that. Like, this article is key to us understanding if people speak up against it, you'll get fired. You get no pension. But yet people are killing people and they still get their pension and they still get their job and they still stay out the workforce. And I don't get it, you know? So there is a conflict somewhere in there where it's like, something got to change.
So yeah, you have good cops. You do have good cops because at the end of the day, you're human. And you, some people feel like they are their job. Some people don't. So if you have that,
can a good human be a good cop? I'm just saying that playing devil's advocate that I hear. Can a good human still be a good cop? Is it a matter of them? Are we saying they're bad humans, or are we just saying that you're a cop and a cop in itself is not a good thing?
I think it's the accountability aspect of it. So going back to what the DNC wrote in their bill, they also included lowering legal standards to pursue criminal and civil penalties for police misconduct. And the plan will also create a national registry to track police misconduct with the body and require the body cams. And I think when you hold people accountable on a general flat level, those good cops will rise versus the bad cops getting all the attention, because without any accountability, people can do what they want. And I think that from a dating standpoint, from having a relationship, if the cop has power, if I'm out all day and I have all this power, I'm bringing it home with me. So if I decide I'm gonna hit my wife, which it's statistics, I don't have the statistics because I didn't even think I was going to bring this up, but police have the most domestic violence, I guess, cases, right?
And they're protected, and they are protected.
Exactly. So they're protected by the people that we're supposed to call on to protect us. So it's like, it's that catch-22.
I want to bring up something that Felicia Logan Jones said in the comments. She said, the officers roles need to be redefined and supported by other professionals. There are good cops. My uncles are good people. It is the system, and I completely agree with her. I definitely think it's systemic. I think that there needs to be more training. You know, there's something to be said about the training that is in America versus other countries. When I lived in England, they carried batons. A lot of them didn't even have guns. So when you think about the limited amount of training that is in America for the police force compared to other countries, it's no surprise that we have a higher death rate than other countries around the world. Are there good cops? Absolutely. I believe that there's good cops. Do I believe that the media shows that? No, because it does not fit whatever the agenda or the message that they're trying to portray. Do you think that they're showing good cop Johnny like helping the kids and Cupid shuffling with the kids? No, they're going to show the Derek Chauvins of the world, right? For whatever the case may be, because that's what's going to rile the people up. I know good cops, so I would personally date a cop. Absolutely. But I think this is all the lens of how you see good cops versus bad cops. One depends on your experience. If the only thing that you've ever experienced is bad cops, then you're going to think all cops are bad. But if you've experienced something different, then your perspective is going to be different.
And I think that has to do with locality, right? So again, if I was raised in the hood, I'm going to have a disposition of cops. If I'm raised in the suburbs, I'm going to have a different disposition of cops. So I think it's very local.
I think it depends. I think even in the hood, there are good cops. There are a lot of cops that help out kids in the community. So I think it really depends on the perspective. Like, I grew up in the suburbs, but I also spent my summers and weekends in the hood, you know? So I've seen it both ways. And I have family members that, you know, still believe that they're good cops. So I think these are all individual perspectives. But again, that's not the message that's being shown. You have to be mindful of whatever you watch and whatever is going to be in the on the radio. F the police. You're constantly seeing police brutality every single day. Every time you scroll on social media, that deals with your psyche.
Yeah.
But I know when I had an issue, I called the police, and I live in Inglewood, and I didn't have a bad experience. Now, that's not to say that my next experience is going to be good, but that's just like dating in a relationship, right? You're going to have some good experiences and you're going to have some bad experiences, but do you just not date at all? Do you just not depend on it? Which makes me, I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later, is like, if I'm in trouble, will I call the police?
That's a good question. Christian?
So facts are facts, right? So if you know somebody, like you're dating, right? You say you're dating somebody and you know that guy has a history of domestic violence. Are you going to engage yourself with that person if you know he has a history of that from your homegirls? No, right?
Absolutely not. But every guy is not going to have that history.
Hold on. So that the police institutions actually have a history, and it's been shown, it's linked up literally to mass incarceration. It's linked up to us getting these bills, even down to the traffic cops. They get on my nerves. I got a traffic ticket every day, every week, every semester, at UCLA. So you have like these different nuances that are built in the institution to literally like hold people down. And you may have those good cops. That's amazing. Thank you for your work. We appreciate it. But if we look at the overall theme, if we look at the facts, and if we look at research that has proven, 54% of LA's budget is for police.
And the fact that LA decided not to take the police out of the school. And my thing with going back to the conversation about having police in the hood and that being a different experience than in the suburbs, we have to think about the presence as well. So if I'm outside of my building and it's a police there, for what? Right. You're waiting for something to happen so that you can arrest someone, or you're standing there so that you can mitigate crime. And with that on your psyche, where I have to constantly be watched.
I agree with you on. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we just need to reimagine what policing looks like, right? And I agree. that there are good cops. Don't get me wrong. I think that we need to focus on this idea of transformative justice and reimagine what policing looks like in 2020. Does that include more training? Well, they've already been trained on implicit bias. Is this a whole federal type training, like from state to state?
Yes.
There's so many different state functions going on to where Georgia got things that are allowed that ain't allowed over here in California. Like, should it just be one platform? And this is something that us as young individuals, this would be good for us to engage and think about as well.
Yeah, so I was actually watching an interview with Congresswoman Karen Bass, and that was one of the questions that came up, because we're pretty sure, you know, there's a lot of bipartisanship when it comes to this police reform bill, right? So it would be expected that the Democrats will present their bill and then it doesn't pass because the GOP is not having it. So then it was asked upon her, well, would it make more sense to then try to start it on a government local level? So going state by state and then creating, mass, everybody coming together just on that legislation alone, going state by state, as opposed to trying to make it something federally, because it's a whole different beast. I think that might end up being the way that it happens. Californians, being that we're very progressive, I know that there's already been measures in California for us to move forward with police reform, but we know that there's those in between.
What does that even mean?
Police reform?
Yeah, because that's going to mean
qualified immunity, for example. That's one of the things that's on the table across the board. Qualified immunity, making sure that these police officers are not protected when they kill people, just because.
And lowering the level of people being accountable. So if you kill somebody, you are going to court and you are going through the process. It's not, we're just going to ignore the whole thing.
We're not going to put you on administrative leave and
exactly
continue to eat and your family continue to eat. But this whole thing.
Right. Yeah, I think if that's involved in police reform, that's great. But I think that sometimes we celebrate and not know what different bills entail. And
that's why we had the whole bill up on the screen.
Yeah, I saw that earlier, but that may or may not be passed, right?
Yeah,
so
it
we
may
don't
not
know.
be passed. And so that's what I'm saying. So if it's not passed, passed on a federal level, then there is opportunity for us, like we always mention, it's important to go to your local elections and know what those bills are locally, because this is going to come up. You should know who your police chief is. You should know, who these key players are in your community in terms of creating a better system of police reform on a local level. And then it can expound from there. I don't have faith that the Democrats are going to be able to pass a police reform bill in 2020. I don't
either. And I think it's gonna be a slow process, just like the legalization of weed, right? So we have, I think, 65% or so of the country that have some kind of law that you can smoke weed in that state.
Right.
But on a federal level, we don't.
Right.
I think on a span, we might have Democratic states all in this one line and in unison about what needs to be done for police reform. But then you're going to have those red states who are still going to want to assert the power of the police because, again, of the history of what the police does.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Sky Fisher says, we will never have true police reform until we learn to police ourselves. We need to be having a two-topic conversation. Why we can't talk about Black-on-Black crime at the same time as reforming the police. When Uncle Ray Ray get drunk and start slapping, I'm assuming that's supposed to say, auntie around, we need to know that the police will see this as a priority and show up. That is a very interesting comment, and I think those are two different conversations. I literally was talking to my friend about this earlier. We can do both. It's not like we have to do one without the other. Every time there's something that happens, people are like, what about Black-on-Black crime? Why we can't fight both?
Mm-hmm. And it's also, we always love to use that Black-on-Black crime as if white people don't kill white people the same rate or more. It's people who you have
two different fights. We're literally fighting amongst ourselves, and we're fighting against a system that is meant to oppress us. Those are two different conversations. It doesn't mean that we cannot fight both fights simultaneously. Mm-hmm. One does not have to be, mutually exclusive. Like, we can fight them both.
And I think that's a distraction that, the GOP and the NRA and everyone else has put on us, is that the problem is Black-on-Black crime. Yes, we do need to police ourselves. I mean, we need to police ourselves on coronavirus because clearly we can't do that.
But a lot of people not getting it. In Orange County, the white people, they not social distancing. They haven't been social distancing. It's not just us.
So we do need to police ourselves, and it's again that community policing. It's one, everyone getting on the same accord on human and self-respect and not being so individualistic, and understanding that we are a community, and until we take care of each other, until we have laws in place for people of other races to respect and protect us, then that's when all the beautiful flowers and everything will come.
Absolutely.
Now, can I just say one thing? I think, well, Sky said we can't reform the law enforcement and not have a solid foundation in our own community. I was literally about to talk about just dealing with a solid foundation, right? So it goes back to access of resources.
Absolutely.
We live in these communities and people are struggling every day just to get food on their table. When they don't have to work 12 hours, 8 hours a day, then commute. I know in LA, I have to commute an hour and a half just to get there, then come back another hour and a half. It's just like all this extra stuff and not even actually have time to build the family, know what a family is, take care of children, have these access to resources. Lack of education is not just the police thing, it's even bigger than this, right? And so for me, I'm thinking more of like, yeah, we could talk about black on black crime, but we need resources in these black on black communities. And then probably that will lower the crime rate, if that, right? And so it goes bigger than just this picture of police reform. In my eye, it's more so about the holistic approach of our systems, kind of like what Gerreka was saying. These systems were meant to oppress us, to keep us in these little different urban communities. Why, and someone, it's a bigger picture than this in my eyes. And
I agree with you.
yeah,
I agree with you, and I think that Felicia Logan said something. She said we need to check ourselves. Police department needs supplement agencies, and I want to speak to that because I don't know exactly what she means by supplement agencies, but I'm going to tell you what I personally think. I think I said it earlier. We need better training for these police officers, and a lot of times they're killing people that have mental health issues, right? So as a therapist, I'm like, we need when police are called, then maybe a mental health professional needs to be on call too, because that mental health professional may be able to de-escalate the situation because they don't, the police don't have the training for that. So if, I don't know, Johnny is spiraling out of control, I'm going to probably be a little bit more calmer than the police who just wants Johnny to listen to whatever he says. But Johnny's not in his right state of mind.
Right. And that is just how he is. And that's what we're dealing with. There's people who are autistic. There are people who have, for example, the young man that played violin at the pet store. He clearly had a difference in personality. I'm not even going to say that he had an issue. And he said it. He said, I'm an introvert. I'm walking around with my mask on. This is who I am. And it was because it was different to them, they decided to inject him. And the part of how he actually died was not at the hands of the police, but it was the medical professionals that over-injected him with a sedative. And that's how he had a heart attack at the age of 23 and died. So I think it's deeper than that even. I agree with you. I just think that there's a psychological reshaping that needs to happen as a whole, even amongst ourselves, even amongst our own people. We look at Black men on the corner, and there's still something in us that has this fear mentality. So I agree. I think it's way deeper. Do I call the police? Is that my first mind to call the police? I can't say I do, because there's been situations where someone has called the police and they end up being the one dead. So it's an overall mindset. And like we said, there's bad apples, and I think there's a bad tree.
And I have a question I want to pose to you guys. I didn't read the article in depth, but the excessive force, it was an article basically saying that excessive force can be mitigated if we have more female officers. So I kind of want to get your opinion on that. Do we start recruiting more female officers?
I saw that article.
In addition to police officers of color, would that kind of help the situation a little bit?
I think so. I know in church, I guess I'll bring out the feminists within. And so,
amen.
They can be feminists too. So I think that, women take the role of, I won't say take the role, but there is a role of more of like a nurturer, right? So more of care. And I think that there comes with more compassion and empathy. And so I would vote highly more for women to get. And then it also, the gender. Like, we got to break these gender roles. Men got to be macho. They got to be the man. They got to be in charge of stuff. Get a little authority. Like,
machismo.
Oh my God! And then you give them a little authority. Then they go.
You give them a little power, and they decide to kill people.
Problem. Jesus. Yeah. So yes, I would say yes.
Absolutely. Well, that would be a good place to end it. I thank you guys. I don't want to go over and take too much of everyone's time, but I want to thank you guys for coming in. Thank you to everyone who's engaged in the conversation. Please feel free to continue to message us, DM us if you have any articles or any statistics, any facts, anything you want us to bring up. We can always double back in the next episode. This was a very good conversation, I think, and I want to urge everybody to keep their eyes on the prize and follow what's going on in these White House and on the Senate floor and understand what they're talking about when they're talking about police reform and qualified immunity. I think as a people, we need to do a better job at just understanding what's out there and what's happening. So my final thought is just let's get out there and vote, and let's know what we're voting on. And let's do our research and let's share that information with the public. And that's why we have this platform.
Definitely.
Anyone else want to close out their final thought?
I will say, if you guys can, if you're in Lancaster, Palmdale, actually everybody that's watching, that's going to watch this, please visit sos10.org. I'm a local organizer out here in Lancaster and Palmdale, and we are in need of resources, right? So we can talk about it all day, but now we've put a list of demands. A group of community pastors, youth leaders, business owners, organizers, teachers, students. We've come together collectively, Black leaders, come together to petition to our elected officials saying that we need stuff out here. We need resources for our youth and our young adults, our seniors, our veterans, etc. And so I would love for y'all to sign our petition so that we can present it to our elected officials. We have a couple of meetings coming up with our senator, our congressman, as well.
What's the link again, Christian?
It's sos10.org.
And spelled out?
SOS, kind of like that helps. So SOS, 10, just the number 10, and .org.
Got
So you can sign it up. This is what I recommend for all of you all to go do for your own cities, your own towns, is, challenge the status quo and speak up and get the demands. It's our time is now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I didn't get my last minute thought.
Yeah.
Let me sit down.
Get it.
Go ahead, Jasmine, or you want me to go first?
I'll do mine just really quick. I want to shout out 2 Black-owned businesses that I supported.
Yes.
Pekin Valley. I got the Nourish My Brain Aptogen Blend. It boosts learning and memory ability while protecting against stress. It's an herbal supplement, Black owned. They have a beauty blend, and they have, I think, a classic blend with turmeric. So shout them out.
Yes.
Your coffee, you put it in your milk lattes.
I made that.
And then I got a new lip gloss by K&B Beauty.
Oh,
And it has moringa and cootie oil, which keeps your pout super plump. And then Cotum and Shea Butter, which provides deep moisturization and prevents drying of lips, as well as cotton oil, which I never heard
that. I a lot of dry lips during this quarantine.
Yeah, so we're gonna drop those on our Facebook page. Drop those links for us, Jasmine, so everybody can check them out. And Gerreka?
Yes. So I know I tuned in a little bit late, but I just want to tell you guys that there is a psychological warfare kind of going on. And so just make sure that you check in with your mental health. There are a lot of free resources. If you do have EAP, tap into that at your job. If not, there's a lot of different, you can just type in free therapy. I don't want to name drop or anything like that. But after this is over, if you guys are interested, you can definitely hit me up at Hey Miss Gilliam, and I can definitely give you some free resources. One of my favorite meditation apps is Insight Timer. Has thousands and thousands of meditations, as well as songs and different sounds. This is psychological warfare going on. So I encourage you to protect your mental space.
Yes, and we will definitely have an episode about protecting our mental space. So thank you, team. Thank you, everyone, tuning in. This was an amazing conversation. You can always rewatch it on YouTube. Share it with your friends. Tell all your friends about it.
Follow us.
Follow all of us, too. So thank you, guys, and we will talk very soon. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.